A lambda function in Python is a way of defining a function without actually naming it or defining it in a separate cell. So let me use this Vega datasets package to motivate why we might want these. And if you get an error when you try to run this line, that probably means you need to install the Vega datasets library. So see the installing new libraries video that should be linked very close to this one. And within data, I can list datasets. And these are the names of the different data sets that we have access to now from having imported this library. And here's the syntax for loading one. I can say, for example, data.us. And I feel like there is some slight problem with this notation. So even though it's written with a hyphen here, like a minus sign, when you're loading it, you have to use an underscore instead. That's just something to know. And then empty parentheses afterwards. And here we can see what it looks like. And usually these data sets are not as big as what we might get off of Kaggle, but that's fine. They're big enough for these examples. So let me name this as df. And let's look at df. So for example, say we want to convert from this month column to a year column. How can I do that? Let's see what kind of data is inside this month column. So I can say df.loc. Let's go, how about to the third row? Okay, or the row named 3 is a better way to call it since I'm using loc instead of iloc, and the month column. And maybe you can tell what it is from the way it's written with these apostrophes on the outside. This is going to be a string. Okay, fine. And what do I want to do? So let's name this particular string S. And I want to go from that string to the year. So you can get that using the same indexing notation as works with lists or works with NumPy arrays, works with pandas data frames. I can say, give me up to but not including the 4th character of this string. And so what I would like to do is use that syntax, okay, square brackets, colon 4, square brackets, in this month column. So let's see, can I just do df month and then say square brackets, colon 4? Nope, because that's trying to get me the first 4 rows of this pandas series. So that doesn't work. So one way we could do it without using a lambda function, and this is the worst way. So here's the worst method. I could say, let's define, how about get year. Input is going to be S, and then return S colon 4. Okay, so if I say get year df.loc 3 month. Okay, so it seems like that's working. And now I could say, give me the month column. And then let's apply to that get year. Okay, fine, that works. But this really isn't a very elegant way of doing it. Like, this is such a specialized function that I can't imagine we're ever going to use it again. So here's the better method. And this is using a lambda function. So what I'm going to say is df month dot apply. Okay, so those work the exact same. And now instead of saying this predefined function, I'm just going to write the entire function inside the parentheses. So lambda x, say, we'll think of x as the input. And then you don't have to write return in this case. You just say, what should it output? And it should output the first 4 characters in x. So this thing, lambda, then the input, it would be fine to also have multiple inputs if it was getting applied to multiple inputs, but here it's just getting applied to each entry at a time. So we don't need to do, or there's no reason to have multiple inputs here. So there is one example. Let's do another example. So let me look at this df again. And say I want to round this service providing column, say I want to round that to the nearest 1,000. How can I do that? So let's do df service providing, and then let's say apply lambda x. And you can call it anything you want. Let's call it, how about n, just to call it something different. And then what happens if I say round n3? So it doesn't seem like it did anything, and that's because this way of using round is trying to go past the decimal point, but here I want to go before the decimal point. So what happens if I do -3? Then you can see that it's rounded to the nearest 1,000. Let me do one more. So let me say df2 equals data.weather. So I'm loading a different data frame from the Vega datasets library. And so this is a tiny data frame. Like if I look at what's its shape, it's only 10 rows by 6 columns. So very small, but still enough for us to practice with one of these lambda functions. So in this record column, I have a dictionary for each entry. So let's do df2.record. And then let's apply. And then let's say lambda, how about D for dictionary? So the input is going to be a dictionary. Input is going to be something like this. And then output will be, give me the value corresponding to the high key. Okay, so for example, 62, 62, 61, 62, 62, 61. And if I had tried to do that like this, for example, that doesn't work. Okay, so this way doesn't work. Maybe I'll do one more example. So df2 ID column. Hey, not a very interesting column. And then how about apply lambda x squared? Okay, so that's squared each of them. That's fine. But remember that often you don't have to do something like that. Often if it's a basic enough function, then you can just apply it to the pandas series to begin with. So here's my pandas series. And then if I just say square this, then pandas knows I want to square it entry-wise. So don't go overboard with using this apply and a lambda, because sometimes you can just use a built-in function in pandas. So another example is if I did this and then +20, okay, that works. Or if I did this greater than 10, or how about greater than 4, that works. Yeah, that'll be the end of this video about lambda functions.